PHP applications that perform a lot of HTTP requests to the same hosts over and over again are currently wasting a measurable amount of time. When you perform HTTP calls in your PHP scripts, then the DNS resolving, opening the connection, and TLS SSL handshake steps are made over and over again in every request. In this video, I want to talk about a new PHP 8.5 API to explicitly share connect, DNS and SSL session information across PHP requests. And this enables you to save a few milliseconds every request if you talk to the same hosts. Example use cases are cloud and microservice-based architectures or with HTTP-based databases such as Elasticsearch. Moin, I am Benjamin and my work is focused on PHP performance topics for the last 10 years, helping thousands of developers along the way. cURL itself already supports configuring what information should be reused within multiple requests using the same and different handles. On the C level, this is done using the cURL share init function. And then you can call share opt, set opt to lock the data for cookie, DNS, and SSL session and connections. So there is the cURL share init function in PHP as well. It performs the same work. It's available for a very long time. However, the scope of this function is only to reuse this information across handles that are used in the same PHP request. So if you have two call handles, your call handle 1 and call handle 2, then they can share, in this case, the cookie data across the requests. PHP shared nothing architecture gets rid of this information after every request. And looking at curl get timers information, we can roughly estimate this to be a few milliseconds that we can save. I picked an endpoint in our Tideways application that can demonstrate this. Not perfectly, but I think it shows what the benefits we can see. So this endpoint here, it's fairly fast most of the time, and you can see that all of the time spent is HTTP requests. So if we look at a trace of this, we can see for 20 milliseconds, about 18 milliseconds is, or 19 milliseconds is HTTP, and curl timer information shows that we have 1 millisecond roughly for connection and DNS lookup in every request so that we can save. It's about 5% of the request time. And if we have requests that use SSL, this time becomes much larger, as we can see later. And that can be shared and reused. So for PHP 8.4, Eric Norris proposed a persistent curl share handle improvement RFC. And this went through 2 iterations and makes this possible. So Mathieu was quite excited about this at the time because as an author of Bref, he certainly sees this as a problem. So establishing TCP and HTTP connections every time can take like 100 to 200 milliseconds because of the HTTPS overhead. And this is something that we can save, and it makes PHP in general much faster. So let's go back to the RFC and see about the API and how it works. So the initial RFC, the first proposal, introduced a way to modify the curl share init function we saw before. The idea was that you can pass the options to share and provide a name for the persistent idea. And there were a few problems with that. The second iteration disallows sharing cookie data because this can cause problems that are very hard to debug. And then additionally, the problem is that users need to choose a persistent ID, and if they do this badly, then it might create a lot of different IDs that have the same settings. And also, if it's not immutable, then there are problems down the line where you can change something, making the API a little bit clumsy and problematic. So the current accepted API that will be in PHP 8.5 is curl share init persistent. you pass an array of share options, and then this returns a curl share persistent handle function, and you can provide this to the curl set opt function with the share option. So let's see how this looks in real code, because this is a bit generic now. The RFC for this change includes a simple code example that demonstrates the use of this. So you call the curl share init persistent function, pass curl log data constant. For example, if you want to share connect and DNS data here, it returns a share handle, and then you can set the share handle with this option to any curl easy handle. And then this is now reusing the connect and DNS data across handles, not only within the same request, but also across multiple calls of this script in the same FPM or Apache process. Let's look again at the RFC for some specific implementation details. So we saw before, curl log data cookie is not allowed anymore because of security reasons and making it hard to debug if that was available. And also users no longer have to choose a persistent ID, so it's very easy to use this functionality. And since this new function returns a new handle, it's also not possible to use the old clunky curl share based APIs, which are not stateless, so not immutable, and this would cause problems. Let's see for ourselves how we can use this new PHP 8.5 API in a small code example. I've taken the code that we saw from the pull request before and modified it slightly. So what did I do here? So I still have a function getCurlHandle. It allows you to provide a host name and a curl shared persistent handle. It then creates a new curl handle and returns that. And we use it to initialize in a persistent connection for the connect session in DNS data. And we provide it a host through a URL either or defaulting to app.tideways.io. We execute the handle, then we call getInfo and print out all the timers. So let's run this for tideways.com. So we can see here that the total time is around 200 milliseconds, of which 46 milliseconds are the name lookup, and then until the connection is done and the transfer is starting, about 90 milliseconds are spent. So I'm sure that it takes that long because it's within the Docker network stack. So I used Docker PHP 8.5 beta 4 for this and run this through the Docker container. So if I run this again now for the same host, it is now much faster. So there are no name lookup time anymore, no connect time anymore, and the pre-transfer start time was reduced massively. So instead of around 200 milliseconds, the request now takes 84 milliseconds, much faster. If I change the host to be app.tideways.io, so it's a different host now, again we can see 165 milliseconds. We have time spent in name lookup and connection time, and then if we rerun the query, again it's shared, the data is not looked up anymore, and we see a massive improvement in the time of this HTTP request. So wow, this is really a great improvement for scripts doing HTTP requests to the same hosts, and a lot of applications are doing that. And I'm really hopeful to see improvements to them when they start using PHP 8.5. So obviously this will need some time to get included into Guzzle and Symfony HTTP client and other wrappers around curl so that we can see the benefits. But given that they look to become quite big, I'm hopeful it will not take a lot of time. If you're interested in additional PHP performance topics, I have a video here on the channel on asynchronous HTTP connections with PHP, and also a lot of additional content on various topics. If you like to stay informed about PHP performance topics, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or our newsletter. The link is in the description. Bye!